Hey everyone, welcome to Penny's Mind Files Method, the podcast showing you where the off ramp to the healing highway is when you're stuck on the life sucks road to nowhere. Today we're talking about words and feelings. Well, actually, the power of words and how that relates to the energy of feelings. Words are everything. Words are how we communicate to ourselves and others. Let me say that again. Words are how we communicate to ourselves and others. A single word is the finger that pulls the trigger for your mind's process to dig into the filing cabinets of your mind and pull a mind file for your reference. One word's all it takes for your mind's process to remind you of a past event, which will then cause your body to generate an emotional response. And more than likely, that reminder is going to get you driving down Anger Avenue or Resentment Road. Let's think about this for a moment. Let's say you're engaged with a conversation with a friend who just broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. The microsecond that your friend starts telling you that they've broken up with their lover, your mind's process has already gone into the filing cabinets of your mind, in this case, your fear cabinet, and retrieved the "my heart is broken" file. Before you can even hear the next word that your friend speaks, your mind's process has already reminded you of every heartbreak that you felt when you either broke up with somebody or got dumped. Your mind's process tells you that you're bonding with your friend and that you're being empathetic, but you're not really. What you're actually doing is sharing the energetic frequency of pain, which intensifies the pain in your mind file. The whole time that you're engaged in the conversation, your mind's process is adding emotional filters to the narratives in the "my heart is broken" file, which is increasing its intensity. Now, depending on where you are in your love life in that very moment, you might even be adding more narratives to that file while you're engaged in that conversation. And every word in the narratives you're adding will also have emotional energy attached, which intensifies the specific mind file, but also the overall energy of your fear cabinet. That's how and why your fear cabinet becomes the dominant cabinet that your mind's process references. We use words to describe how we feel when we're living in the moment and how we felt when we're allowing our mind's process to keep us stuck in the past. Words are attached to images in our mind's process, which means that feelings are also attached to those images. When we're really young, before we knew how to speak, we had to communicate somehow with our caregivers, and we did that through sound because the only means of communication we have as infants is either laughing and cooing or crying. That's it. There's two states of being. It's happy and content or sad and miserable. Now, when we're hungry, we cry, our needs are met through feeding. So we associate the vehicle that delivers the food, either a breast or a bottle, with satisfaction because our hunger was satisfied. The image of the breast or the bottle is filed away in a mind file somewhere that says something like, when I'm hungry, all I have to do is cry and I get fed. If our caregiver misinterpreted the crying and didn't prepare a bottle or appear to be getting ready to feed us, then the crying would continue and probably intensify. But eventually, our needs are met and we quit crying. Now, I don't know this for sure, but this could be why some men are breast lovers, while others are fans of a different body part. And for women, there could be more of a desire to bond with their child through breastfeeding, to be more nurturing, because somewhere in the filing cabinets of their mind is the remembrance of the experience of that energy transference. Interesting, hey? Every word that we use to describe something is attached to the image of what it was we're trying to describe. Even when we're older and we have a larger vocabulary, or hopefully a larger one, images are still important because sight is another instigator for the mind's process to get working, as is smell and touch. Because we experience life in 3D through our five senses. When our mind's process recalls a past event, it attaches another word to describe our assessment of how we think we felt. Our assessment is determined by our cognitive level at the time of the experience. So if we're 3 years old, then our perspective, which is just a reinforced narrative because it's been referenced, along with the emotional filters, is that of a 3-year-old. If we were 5, then our perspective, the reinforced narrative with the emotional filters, is that of a 5-year-old. These are the mind files that our mind's process continues to reference. They don't stop. Your mind's process doesn't go, well, so how old were you at the time? No, it doesn't do that. It just references them and then it adds to them. Our mind files are our creations, and everything we create begins with a word. In the beginning was the Word. You've heard that before, right? In the opening line of the Gospel of John, it says, in the beginning was the Word. Gospel of John is my favorite book in the New Testament because it offers a different perspective of who Jesus was from the other Gospels. Now think about that for a moment. The words that a person chooses to use to describe a significant experience in their life is determined and skewed or shaped by the narratives with their associating feelings that are housed in the files of the filing cabinets of that person's mind. That's why Matthew's account of his time with Jesus is different from John's. And it's also why people who teach religion, why their interpretations vary widely. It's also why people who carry a lot of emotional pain and who, for whatever their reasons are, blame God for whatever it was that people said and did to them. These people not only turn away from God themselves, but they convince others to do so as well. Every word read, heard, or spoken passes through emotional filters attached to the narratives in the mind files of the people who are reading or listening or whatever they're doing. Then those interpretations are passed on to others. It's like, think of when you ask 10 people who witnessed a robbery to describe what they saw, you almost always get 10 different versions of the event. Words create and ruminate. Words conjure and call. And understanding what they're conjuring and who they're calling to, well, that's the key that unlocks the prison door that keeps you stuck in your past, where all that emotional pain and negative energy is. Now, the word we're most familiar with all of that is burden. Burden is defined as something that is emotionally difficult to bear. Now, difficult suggests uncomfortable and hard. And we humans have a tendency to avoid anything we think is going to be difficult or hard, which is why we avoid revisiting those burdens, which are just the files in the filing cabinets of our mind. This is the root cause of generational trauma. And yet, people would rather discuss all the hows and whys and the ideas of generational trauma rather than resolving the files in the filing cabinets of their mind. They've convinced themselves that ruminating and discussing and thinking about how dysfunctional behavior patterns are passed down and the intricacies of abuse is more important than resolving their own burdens. That's why cycles continue, because people avoid difficult. But you know what? If you're here listening, then you're trying to break out of that dysfunctional cycle. You're curious and courageous. You're hearing the call and you're answering. So good for you. Keep coming back. and you will achieve what you set out to do. So let's look at some words associated with abuse and trauma and see if any of them cause your mind's process, like what files are referenced. So pay attention. You might want to hit pause, go get some paper and a pen if you can, unless you're driving, and pay attention to your thought process. Think about what's happening here. Okay, so here we go. Assault, abuse, rape, molestation, beating, hit, punch, stab, shoot, gun, weapon, blood, wound, scar, bruise, pain, gag, choke, strangle, suffocate, fall, crash, accident, explosion, bomb, fire, danger, threat, killed, suicide, lockdown. How many words caused a reaction for you? Now I left lockdown for last because many people, I bet you your mind went to the COVID pandemic because the entire world was locked down. But I bet there's something you haven't thought about. Every single day and well, not every single day, but kids in school all over North America, schools get locked down and they practice lockdowns for perceived threat. There's no threat. There's no real threat. But from the time that these kids start school at like 5 years old, they are being conditioned and they're learning fear to associate that with the words lockdown. Now, as we continue on down the healing highway, the insidious nature of that action is going to become more and more and more apparent to you. People are always oblivious to the harm that they inflict on others because they convince themselves that their actions are different somehow, that they're being protective and loving. But they're fear driven. And everything that's fear driven inflicts harm. Okay, let's look at some feelings. So I'm going to use words that describe feelings that aren't as commonly expressed because, the common ones, like people get stuck in the common ones, like anger or depressed, or I'm in a depression, or I'm sad or frustrated or stressed. But there's way more states of being. And the more you become aware of it, the easier it is to avoid adding to those intensely charged mind files because you have a different understanding then. Anyway, so let's go through a list. And again, pay attention to what comes up for you. Here we go. Comfortable, safe, serene, hopeful, thrilled, thankful, entitled, animated, bubbly, vibrant, accepted, stubborn, panicky, nervous, uptight, petrified, enraged, irate, irked, pissed off, amazed, accomplished, driven, alarmed, cautious, shaken, startled, adored, and loved. Now, how many times in the last week did you feel cozy or delighted? How many times in the last week did you feel angry and frustrated? What about appreciated, valued, confident? How many times in the last week did you feel sorry for somebody or guilty about something? You see, words hold power because they're attached to energy. Every person is emitting energy, and that energy is what's communicating with the universe. When your fear cabinet, and that is most people, is the most referenced cabinet, then you're telling the universe that you want more experiences like the ones that you've described in the mind files housed in that cabinet. That's why what you think isn't always the same as what you believe. And the universe responds to your beliefs, which are your rigid mind files, the ones with the most emotional filters in it. And these are the ones that are referenced the most. Learning to pay attention to the words that you think and speak, which is really the idea of becoming mindful, and having the courage to review and reassess the narratives in your fear files. This is how not only you shift, but how your choice to shift impacts the whole world. It's the butterfly effect. Your choices really do impact others. Your willingness to choose to become mindful, well, that's how you do your part in changing the world. That's it for today. I hope you heard something here that can help you, help yourself. Keep driving down that healing highway. It's a scenic road. And hey, join the conversation. Let me know what you think. See you next time.